Uh, this is summer solstice, or the strawberry moon, and that's usually when I start seeing the small fawns, because the moms have left them, or they didn't leave them. They start bringing them out of the grass where they left them before, and they're starting to break them away from nursing from them. And the small fawns will come out and start exploring around and seeing what mom eats, and mom's showing them how to survive on other things besides just milk. So anyway, this is a story about this little doe here too. She was wounded during her early years when she was just a yearling herself, and during the doe season, somebody had shot her in the back left leg, and it started to heal, but I didn't know how good it was going to heal. Anyway, here's her little fawns are starting to show up, and it's really a pretty neat thing to watch this happen. How she treats them little fawns and takes care of them. She's a good mom, and she's been even to some of the fawns you might see in one of these pictures. I don't know. Will lift its back leg just like the mom did, where the wounded leg, she'll lift it up and stretch it or whatever, and you'll see the little fawn do the same thing, like copying off the mom. But beside that, she turned out to be a real good mom, and she's really getting around on that leg. Now, I don't know how far she goes. She must go pretty far, because sometimes she leaves my camera area around here, and or my wildlife studio area and disappear for a week or so, and then she comes back. Sometimes she comes back alone, and then sometimes she comes back with the fawns. But it's an interesting concept of what goes on with wildlife. And it's sort of what I believe how the Native Americans learned to live by watching wildlife. Not only American Indians, but also cavemen and whatever. Our ancestors back in the real early days watched the wildlife and watched how they lived and performed. Now, another thing you see here is a bonding, about how these little fawns will bond with each other, bond with the mom, which starts making a little herd. In other words, this is a 3 deer. Right now, it's a 3 deer herd. Then later on, you'll probably see in here where other deer mingle in, and they all join together. But you'll see a pecking order develop, and this is all pretty neat to watch. From these little fawns up to the pecking order. The bucks start, you'll see, I won't show you anything about young bucks here, because I haven't seen many this year. How they develop their racks, and how the pecking order starts with them. But the pecking order is pretty extreme at times. The does will usually start claiming the food area there, and it'll chase the other deer away. The does sometimes will chase the young bucks away. They'll keep them away from that food, because at their early season, the does are really into the food, and the bucks stay back. And the small deer also, even the moms eat and all that stuff. So they stay away, and it's the big deer Now here's the picture here. It's really neat. This is another herd coming in, which they must be a friendly herd because the mom and the little ones sort of mingle in with them. But you see a little bit of what would you say, a challenging disposition between the mom and the other deer, or maybe even a caution. You might even see a caution here of what goes on with the small deer and the other herd. But it's really, I just enjoy watching their interaction with each other. The little guys will mingle around the mom's mouth and see what she's eating. They'll actually smell and see what she's eating. Or go over and actually check out the same thing she touched, or whatever she's picking up off the ground, or even licking at the salt lick. They learn that they like that salt lick. And this is one of the exciting times of the year for me to watch. Of course, if there was a young buck in here, I usually watch how they develop, and when they start developing their little points on their head, they become spikes, and then whatever after that, they keep developing more and more points on their head, and they become the king of beasts. One big buck will take over the whole herd and take the males away, put them somewhere out here in the mountains, then come back and take the does away. There's a complete different system that's set up, and it's amazing to watch. Right now, I'm talking to you right now. All my does, all my bucks and all my does have left. There was a pretty good sized bunch of bucks come in the other night. 5 bucks. And there was quite a few does, but all of a sudden they disappeared. Now I haven't seen anything come back for about 3 days, and then a buck and a doe came back by themselves at different times. The buck came back early, and the doe came back early in the morning, but they were alone. And it's an unusual thing that makes me wonder, is there something out here in these fields that are chasing the deer away, or going after them so the deer avoid coming here? But then it might just be their way of doing things. There's a society. They have a society that they actually go by. Especially the roar. I don't know what it was, but I think I took the roar last year, which was a big 6-point buck that I'd seen other bucks shy away from or stay away from. Like he would even chase the 8-point bucks, and they'd stay away. But the societies of people develop the same way. They select a roar, and he takes charge. But it's an interesting thing to watch, this whole wildlife, animal disposition with other animals and what goes on in their lives. 'Cause there ain't nothing in the way. But Mom is doing great. She can walk around with that bad leg. She stretches it. Human beings can't do that. They usually sit on their couch and moan and groan and take pills. Deer don't take pills, and they don't moan and groan. You don't hear this one moan and groan. And one day she'll be walking fine on it, and then the next day she'll be holding it up like maybe she strained it or sprained it somewhere out in these rough fields, like got it caught on a branch or whatever. And she might have injured her leg, and she shows it. But human beings can't do that. We're a mess. We are strictly a mess. We're afraid of pain, and it shows here how they can take the pain. Now during this time, I think there's a little lightning showing up here with some rain in these pictures here. So every once in a while you see a large flash. Now that could also be one of my other cameras doing that too, because I have a camera here that shows color pictures, and that camera lights up the area pretty good with a brighter flash. But I think it was lightning that day. You'll see in there a couple times where she's pushing them away from wanting milk. She'll actually shy them and make them go away. They'll try to get milk from them. They'll push. I look at them. They ran over there to see that other deer. And there wasn't too much of a battle going on. The other deer left them alone. There you can see how curious they are about the other deer. But that's a good thing, I guess. And then they develop a herd, and they all join together. And during the hunting season, they will join together, no matter what their differences are, or who's boss or anything like that. They'll join together, and they'll have a lead doe or a lead whatever. And that deer will take them wherever he wants to go, or she wants to go. Most of the time it's a doe, though. That's the lead. It's almost like the American Indians. That's sort of what they had. Most of the females were the leads in those villages, and they were in charge. It wasn't the males. The males didn't own anything. The females owned all the property. The tent that they lived in, everything belonged to the females. So they were in charge. And then they're the ones that select who's going to be their chief. And their chief was a male, usually a male. But sometimes they selected a female as a chief. There's only a couple of those that I know of that I read about. And back in the pioneer times, one of the female chiefs that was more or less upstate further. She was pretty strong, a pretty mean woman. She took some scalps, and from some of the settlers. She wouldn't mess around with them. Now another thing that's really neat and I like to watch is I like to see them spots on these little deer, and that's one of the reasons why I went from infrared camera to a camera that took color pictures at night, which is part infrared and part and the other part's not. So it has a brighter flash, and like right here, you can sort of see the spots down their little deer's back. That's because the color camera is also on at the same time taking the same picture, so the spots show up. But when the color picture camera doesn't turn on at the same time the infrared ones do, you hardly see the white spots because the deer themselves look white. As you look at these deer, they're sort of whitish in color. The mother is just as white. Now, if you've seen her out in the open, she'd be almost orange. Same with the little ones, they'd be orange with the white spots on them. But say, since they all look white, it all comes through because the infrared has dissolved the white, or dissolved the red, and made everything look white. Now you can do this with a little wrapper, say a chewing gum wrapper, a lollipop wrapper, or something that has a red color to it. Just take a rose and put it in a red rose and put it on the counter in front of you and look through a red wrapper, and you'll see the rose will actually turn white. For instance, in a dark room, the light bulb in the dark room blurts out the red rays, and so what it does, it just makes everything sort of white in a dark room. What I mean by a dark room is that's where you develop film, camera film and stuff. Maybe it doesn't do that today, I don't know. But the old dark room, old time dark rooms, that's what they used to do. Yeah, it was a red filter. And you can actually filter out the colors. But as you see, Mom, she's stepping down on that foot fairly good. Really nice. She can walk around on it and step on it. Before when she almost couldn't walk on it at all. It just dangled when I first seen her. That leg just dangled. It just didn't look right at all. It didn't look like she was going to survive. And then I thought maybe she had gangrene in it because it got really dark and nasty looking. But as she went along, it developed that big lump on the side of it as I guess the calcium started to grow back in there. And she was able to put her whole foot down on the ground. And then she started using it like a cane. But she can pivot on it and move around pretty darn good on that bad leg. And it's really, really interesting to watch that. Very interesting to me, anyway. Because I know when my foot is aching, or when I have a problem with my foot, a sprain or something, and you can't even put it on the ground. But she has done that. Now this is that little fawn, and he's pretty close. You can just about see the spots on its back if you look really hard. Yeah, that filter really filters out the white. Or filters out the red, really, and makes deer look white. But the deer's not white, believe me. He's orange, and you'll see it in here later on. I got some pictures on here from the color camera, and like I said, this is really a beautiful time. I sit and I watch these little things, and people wonder, well, how come you like these animals, but yet you hunt them? Well, it is a sort of, it gets to my heart when I do take a deer. But then I think the Great Spirit had put that deer there for me to take during the hunting season. I'm not hunting them now, but he's putting them out there. And as you see in this picture, they're out here in the rain, the wind. They grow up a little bit and they're out there in the snow and all. But there's another thing, is I love them as much as my pets. I even name them sometimes. But when hunting season comes and the deer is put in front of me, I think the Great Spirit knows why I'm here. And if that deer shows up, just like last year, for 2 years I was after a 6-point buck. And for 2 years that 6-point buck knew where I was and would look at me while I was hunting him. And he'd be looking up at me, and then all of a sudden he'd disappear. But then last year, he was put in front of me. He came out of almost nowhere, and he was put dead in front of me. And I thought, this deer was made for me. He's put there for me from the Great Spirit to provide me with food and whatever else I wanted from him. He was there. Now here's them little fawns, but this is daylight picture, and it's fawns from another deer. This isn't the deer with the bad leg. Oh, by the way, I call that deer with the bad leg Gimpy. But anyway, it's not Gimpy's fawns. This is another doe that showed up with her babies. And she also has another deer that follows her around. That was her fawn from last year. But yeah, the little fawns almost all look the same. Every deer there looks pretty near the same. And I was always wondering about the spots. Are the spots all rigged up the same way? Same design? Like they zigzag right over that deer's shoulder. And this is interesting to watch. Now another thing like I do watch on these deer as they grow is any kind of diseases. And some of the deer, the adult deer, could have, well, they have ticks all over them. Sometimes you'll see the ticks. But now I've spotted lumps on some of these deer, the adult deer. And also the fawns. I've seen a fawn around with lumps on his neck. Now I don't know whatever happened to them because they're not there no more. I haven't seen any lately. But earlier in the season I did. There was actually deer that came in from last year, and the small deer had lumps on their face. Now this is a disease, and it sort of worries me about us who consume the meat about deer with disease. That's the first time I've ever seen a bobcat around here. So he showed up last year, but I haven't seen him this year at all. So whether one will be around or not, I don't know. I don't know what's out here in this field right now. Like I said, the deer have all disappeared from here. So I haven't had any deer around here except for that buck and a doe. And so I'm waiting for them to come back or to see what's going to show up. And here's Gimpy by herself. She come in without her little fawns. This is the end of the season, and I'm going to be watching her until next year. So, you guys have a nice hunting season this year. Watch out for the deer on the road. Stay off your cell phones and don't hit anything.